Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soul Conscious Conversations to ignite your spirit and support your journey of growth, healing, and transformation. And today I am joined with author and world renowned shamanic teacher Sandra Ingerman. And for over 30 years, Sandra has taught workshops internationally on shamanic journeying, healing, and reversing environmental pollution using spiritual methods. Sandra is recognized for bridging ancient cross cultural healing methods into our modern culture, addressing the needs of our times, and she inspires us to stand strong in unity so we do our own spiritual and social activism work while keeping a vision of hope and being a light in the world. And today's conversation is really based off much of her work, but walking in light and just really talking about becoming that vessel of love, which is so important. So, welcome to this platform. We are so excited. I'm so excited for you to be here. Sarah, as I told you off air, wasn't able to do so. We got the little baby and couldn't find somebody to watch. So, I needed to show up, and here I am with you, and I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here too. Thank you, Christopher.
So before we kind of dive into really the depths of what we want to talk about today, becoming that vessel of love, I want to kind of do a high level overview of people that might be tuning in. They're not so sure. They've heard the word shaman. They may know what shamanism is. They may have read some of your books already or other pieces of work, but what is a shaman, and kind of what led you down this road into getting into shamanism?
Well, I'll start with what shamanism is. and shamanism is actually the oldest spiritual practice known to humankind, and it's a universal practice. We know it dates at least 100,000 years, and as new evidence keeps being undug and new old petroglyphs are being looked at, we're wondering, wow, we think shamanism is actually way over 100,000 years old. And it's a universal practice. And so, what a lot of people are unaware of is that everybody listening to this show probably has an ancestor who practiced shamanism. It does not belong to one particular culture. It was a universal practice, and it was a nature-based practice. It was all about how the human community relates with the nature beings that we share our homes with, our communities with, our planet with. And so much of shamanism has been a teaching about how we live in harmony and in balance with ourselves, with our communities, and with nature. And so the core of shamanism is actually shamanism as a way of life, of how we work with our words that we say to ourselves and to others, the thoughts that we loop throughout the day, our daydreams. These are all energetic practices that really impact our own personal health, our health of the community, and our health of the planet. And so in shamanic cultures, it was seen as the whole community was one organism. And so it wasn't like where people had their own lives and what do you want to do in particular. Yes, everybody's passion was acknowledged, but the community, the tribe, depended on everybody stepping into their power and bringing their strength, their knowledge, and their shamanic way of life into the community so that the whole community could be healthy and could thrive. So much of shamanism is about how we relate to nature, how we speak, how we think, and how we put that out into the world. But then as you keep exploring the practice of shamanism, there are very core ceremonial practices. A shaman is a man or woman who performs ceremonies. Ceremonies are sacred acts that heal and create change and create transformation. And one of the classic ceremonies that shamans perform are what are called a shamanic journey. And in the ethnographic literature, what you will read is that a shaman is a man or woman who goes into an altered state of consciousness, meaning we lift up out of our humanness and drop into our spiritual self and have the ability on a soul level to travel from this ordinary reality world that's very two-dimensional and has a very limited perspective on life into this amazing transcendent realm that is filled with these divine beings who once had a life here and know what it's like to be human and could look down on us, from a high perspective, because we're playing the game of life. We're spirit too. We have the same power of the spirits. It's just we're playing the game of life and we can't see around us, but the spirits can. And so shamans have been dependent for tens of thousands of years on these strong relationships with what we call helping compassionate spirits who are willing to give guidance, whether it's about health, relationships in the modern world, how do we find a job, how do we find a good relationship, how do we improve our health, on and on. But also, there are very particular healing ceremonies that shamans perform to cure power loss, depression, misfortune, suicidal tendencies, PTSD, illnesses that have formed a spiritual block in the body and need to be removed, and what we call possessing spirits, the beings of ghosts that entered into your body because you weren't home, because you experienced soul loss through trauma in your life. And so it was the role of the shaman to be able to call back power to a person who was dealing with emotional or physical issues, to call back all of our soul essences and return it to us so that we're so filled with our own spiritual presence and whole that we can be completely embodied in life and participate in life instead of being a spectator, and to be able to pull out those spiritual blockages that don't belong in our body that also impact our emotional and physical health. So the role of the shaman is a path of direct revelation where he or she works directly with their helping spirits. They don't work with other shamans, they don't work with other people's spirits, they work with their spirits to bring through unique ceremonies that are just for you.
Mm.
So that's a lot to unpack, I know.
So to recap there, so essentially they have one foot in the ethereal realm and one foot on earth and are bridging that gap to bring healing or whatever it is to the person that they're working with or people.
Yes, yes, and guidance, healing and
And
guidance.
guidance.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you throughout of all your work and all of your text, all of your books that you've written, and through your direct experience, you talk about a shaman needing to radiate light and to radiate love and to become a vessel of love. So, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I thought I'd give a little bit of an example of this. It's
Please.
really interesting because one of the things that we're missing in the Western world today is the fact that our ancestors, our spiritual ancestors, our shamanic ancestors, whatever tradition you're looking at, has led breadcrumbs of how to heal and how to survive and how to thrive in the coming times. And they wrote books, they shared narrative stories that were sung and taught in communities. They have been guiding us all the way. And one of the ancient principles that is taught about in all traditions is that you can walk into the room of a spiritual master, of a shaman, of a healer, and if they are evolved enough in their own work, if they've had their deep initiatory experiences where they experience that there's only unity, and where they experience the unconditional love that we were created from, and when they experience in their near death experiences that when they lose their body, they're just spiritual light. These spiritual masters and these shamans, when somebody comes into their presence, the shaman doesn't go down to the level of the client. The shaman lifts the client up to their level. And their level is where they are a presence of love and a presence of light, because they had a near death experience. They died in this lifetime. And I've had 3 of those myself, and know what that experience is like. You leave your body behind, and you go back to the creative forces of the universe that created your life through love, unconditional love and joy and light, so that you could be a reflection of the creator. And the creator is just love. Whether you call the creator God, the goddess, the creative forces of the universe, the powers that be, the list goes on, Buddha, you know, all the names that are used for the creative forces of the universe, they created out of absolute unconditional love. But in our culture in the West, we confuse unconditional love with personal love. But this is just the love for life, pure life force connected to heart energy that brings a consciousness into the world that can create any miracle. Any miracle. When you combine life force with heart energy, there is no miracle you can't create. And that has been taught for thousands of years. And so when you're in the presence of a shaman or a mystic or a healer who had these profound experiences of going back to source again, what happens is their personality and their ego is carved away, is sculpted away, so that our own inner light can shine through, and that the unconditional love of the universe can also be emanated from our heart. Because who we are beyond our body and our mind is pure spiritual light. That's who we are. That's our true identity. And when we can feel that light being absorbed into every cell of our being, and when we can radiate that light in the world, everything transforms.
Mm. Wow, so much stuff came up there from what you were saying. And do you, first, before we dive a little bit deeper, do you feel that it's necessary that the shaman, the healer, the mystic has these experiences, or has to have these experiences before they can actually do the work? Is there any
Yeah,
way around that? Is there a way to tap into that without having those experiences? I know people are probably thinking this who are listening right now.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have tens of thousands of shamanic practitioners. practicing shamanism right now. And what I try to teach is there's a difference between a shaman and a person who practices shaman.
Mm,
A true shaman is the person who has these really big initiation experiences. But some of my students that have trained with me, their initiation experiences were losing a baby. Their initiation experience was being in a war. Their initiation experiences were being abused. And so initiation experiences don't have to come through death. Everybody in the Western world has gone through these big changes where one part of our life dies, is dismembered, is completely destroyed, so that another aspect of our life can be reborn. And that's what initiations are about. And that's why the shaman has to go through initiations, is because they're constantly being reborn into a higher state of consciousness where their ego and personality is not what's riding them. So, yes, those are extreme circumstances. But I have trained thousands of students who have gone through devastating initiations that didn't bring them to physical death, where they had to be revived, but brought them to emotional death, where everything died inside of them, in order for them to be able to embrace a new change that happened in their life and to be reborn into a new life where they're more spirit than ego and personality. And then there's a whole nother level of those of you listening out there who are curious about what can I learn from working with these helping spirits. And those of you who are really curious, and it's all of our birthright to be able to meet with helping and compassionate spirits. We start to meet with the helping, compassionate spirits, and then as change happens in our life, our helping spirits show us how to mold a new life for ourselves to be able to live a life where we're a vessel for love and life. So there are just different ways of entering into the work. And if you go in from a full initiation, you might not have to do all the discipline practices because you got the download. And for some of us, and even I've had at least three near-death experiences in my life where I was brought back to life from death. But I'm still finding the spirits are still putting me through the same initiation experiences everybody's going through, because right now we need to evolve into greater presences. And that's what being a vessel of love is about, is being a greater presence in the world that emanates kindness, honor, and respect.
mm. And I can relate to what you're saying on a few levels. I haven't had any near death experiences. If Sarah was here right now, she's told her story a lot. She was badly and brutally attacked in Africa, and she was brought to near death. But she talks about that experience a lot as an evolutionary catalyst. And I know a lot of people that have had very traumatic or painful experiences. Can either go one of two ways. They can get stuck in victim consciousness where they really cling on to that, and that's something that they carry with them the rest of their lives. Or again, they can use that as an evolutionary catalyst. And I know right now, as you just mentioned, there are so many people going through so many different things because as a collective, it's really this almost like a life or death scenario where it's like we need to evolve, and we need to evolve quicker than we ever had to before, because we're going through a major shift. So what can you say to people that may have had these experiences, that don't know how to integrate them properly and move past that victim stage?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of visionary experiences, and I had a really interesting one the other day that's kind of funny, and I've been sharing it a lot. What the spirit said to me is happening for me, and what's happening for everybody on the planet right now, going through these initiation experiences, and I love ice cream, so that will put this in perspective for you. They said that we're actually all being put back into an ice cream maker to be returned into a new flavor. Because basically, we've been living our lives where even if we do our spiritual work, many of us have spiritual practices, and I'm sure most of you listening to the show have some spiritual practice that helps you. But we're still in this culture, we're still in a state of believing we're separate from the rest of life. We're still allowing our ego and our mind to make decisions for ourselves instead of our heart and our spirit. And so we're pretty dense beings on the planet right now. And the creative forces of the universe and the earth herself is evolving away from that kind of density. Recently, the earth, who's 4.6 billion years old, imagine a being 4.6 billion years old coming to you in a shamanic journey and saying, I'd like to have a conversation with you right now. And when you lie on the earth, not to get off track, you're lying on a being that's 4.6 billion years. I want you to imagine that. So the earth came to me in a journey and said, I want to talk to you about my evolution. And she said, where I'm moving to is out of survival of the fittest, and where all humans, all animals, all insects, all trees, plants, everything that's alive, including the earth itself, will become less dense, meaning that more light will shine through. We'll kind of be light beings that have a form. But right now, we're so stuck on the form, we're not letting our spirit lead the way. We're letting our ego lead the way. And so, where evolution is taking us to is where spirit leads the way, but yet we have these forms of bodies that can still enjoy chocolate and the smell of roses and the beauty of the earth, and tastes, and hearing birds singing and children laughing. Spirits don't get to do that. So I saw that it's more of a blending of being a human and being a spiritual light being, and that's happening to us, but it's happening to us bit by bit. And as life keeps, the fabric of reality keeps unweaving, for the collective, things are dissolving right before our eyes. Ways of life we always depended on, we need to step back into our power of the ancient ones and start connecting more with nature, and start perceiving ourselves as more than a body, but that we have a spirit, and that our heart is who leads us, not our ego and our mind.
So important, that wisdom of really just connecting deeper within ourselves. And there's a few questions that I have. One would be, somebody that's kind of caught up in this cycle of ego-based thinking and doing and all of that, what are some ways that they can step outside of that boundary and tap deeper into their spirit and allow that spirit to really, one, surrender to it and allow it to really come into the driver's seat and allow your life to be led through your heart rather than through your mind. What is, maybe, I know there's probably so many things we can talk about, but what are a few things people can do to really start tapping into that energy?
Well, I'd like to give two practices. One
Please.
One is very basic. Well, they're both very basic, and every spiritual practice takes some discipline to really feel the results of it. And for me, what I do is throughout the day, because it's habitual for me to go right up here. It's just habitual. And so I try to catch myself as much as I can. You know, being on a spiritual path is, it's like exercising. As we practice, we get better at it. And so I catch myself standing on line at the bank, and I'm mad at how long the line is taking, or all the other mishaps that happen in my life. And I can see my mind coming in and my ego mm, standing strong. And what I do at that point is I take a deep breath and I set an intention. Intention creates action. And I set an intention to move from my head into my heart. And the first thing I do is I start to think about my favorite nature beings, or my favorite people on the planet, or what I love about life. So I've engaged my heart. Now I've engaged my heart. And now, once I've engaged my heart, my energy is now here. I was able to move it into my heart and have my thinking mind now focusing on beauty and on what we love. And that immerses me into my heart. And then I ask my heart, what is the appropriate action for me to take in this situation? Or what is my heart's desire versus my ego's desire? And so this puts you in contact with your heart, where either you can get a cup of tea and have a conversation with your heart of what it's calling you to, or you can take a walk in nature, or you can do some writing. What is your heart calling you to? Or, like I said, if I'm online at the bank and mad at everybody, I can shift my state of consciousness to, my heart doesn't care how long it takes for me to be on this bank line. It loves everybody in the room. And I can start emanating light and love and lift everybody up. So that's a really simple exercise to do, is just start to focus on what you love, and then ask your heart to give the appropriate response and action for you to take. And then the most common practice that I teach, because it's been taught for tens of thousands of years successfully, and we're having miraculous healings beyond our wildest imagination since I've been teaching this practice since the year 2000, is it's very simple. And I call the practice transfiguration, which means, to me, my definition is shape-shifting into light. And that means shape-shifting into your spiritual identity. As I already said, who you are beyond your body and your mind is spiritual light. So what I would like you to do, and this is really simple, is to put on some nice music, nice expanding music, not music with words in it. You don't want to be hearing words. And imagine yourself, use your imagination. Imagination is a God-given gift. Use your imagination to travel within, just travel. See, imagine your consciousness going into your body, and use your imagination to I see a light on my head. We're getting we're getting an omen from the sky. See a light from the night sky in your body starting to grow. And so a star, I like to use a star when I do this practice. Imagine a star. I had a Basque teacher, shamanic teacher, who taught in the Basque tradition. It's taught that we're walking stars on a great big planet, which is a star. And so, and stars don't effort. They just shine their light. They don't think about where they're shining it, and that they don't have the energy. They're too tired to shine. They just shine and they light up the entire planet, and we're in awe of their beauty. So travel inside yourself, because everything outside in your environment is inside you. Travel inside yourself and find your inner starlight, and let that starlight start to grow. And then start to absorb that light into your cells. And imagine being a dry sponge that's been put into water, and the sponge goes and plumps up, or a flower that's been in the rain and the sun comes out and the flower just takes in that light. Imagine your cells being a flower in the sunlight, just taking in that light. And then as you absorb it into every single being, and this will create healing in your life beyond your wildest comprehension, then you let that light just flow. You don't send it, no sending. It's just radiating like a star, or like the sun. You can use the sun instead of a star if you relate to that better. And you just let that light radiate. And what that does is it goes out throughout the collective, throughout the planet, lighting up and enlivening all of life. And so when you do that practice every day or 2 times a week, and I'm talking about 15 minutes in the morning, I'm not giving you a hard practice to do 10 minutes if that's all you got. I do it for a few minutes a day now because I'm so entrained in the practice of experiencing yourself as being a being of light, of being a walking star, of being a walking sun. And that will evolve you in non traumatic ways. No pain comes with this. And in a way of beauty that just shuts down your ego and shuts down your looping thoughts. And you become a being of light, like the spiritual masters of old, who were able to transform and heal anything and anybody.
Mm. I love the simplicity of this. And I often, I mean, through doing so many different interviews that we've done over the years, and we've talked to so many different people across the world, and obviously every practice is sacred to whoever's talking about it because that means something to them and something they've taught. But really, through my own experience and through many of the things that I've done throughout the years cultivate a spiritual practice, it really, as far as recently, has been coming down to simplicity and not overthinking what it should be or what it could be and doing five different things. It's just, it becomes too much, and then you get in your head space, right, rather than in your heart space. So I just really appreciate the simplicity behind that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And I see the real shadow of what's happening in the Western world today of we believe that there is a method that's more powerful than another. So
Mm,
we start to go on this search for methods. And in shamanism, methods have never healed anybody. It's the energy that's healed. It's the magic behind the method that heals. So in the Western world, we're actually missing the magic because we're learning the methods, but we're not focusing on the magic behind the method. And it's the magic behind the method that heals. And that magic is really simple.
True alchemy.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And from your experiences, your messages, your communications with the spirit realm, where do you see things going? Obviously, you seem to be pretty hopeful for our future as a collective. Where I know time is an illusion, and we obviously don't experience that as non-linear, where it's very linear in our sense. So from a linear perspective, have you been giving any sort of messages or timelines to where humanity could be in 10, 20 years? What does that look like? Have you received anything like that?
Yeah, well, one of the transcendent beings, one of my helping compassionate spirits, is the Egyptian goddess Isis. And what she shares with me every year, especially around New Year's, because everybody gets into their predictions. And what Isis keeps trying to remind us is that our future is created by the present and from the present. And so she said, when you make predictions, they can't be right because the future is always changing by the decisions that you're making in the present. And so it's really important for us to focus on our present actions and our present thoughts and our present ways of being in the world, because that's going to lead to the positive future we all want to see. But if you just look through one's eyes, and we don't need the spirit's eyes to be able to do this, we're seeing a real unweaving of the life that we've known. How we've been living on this planet and how we've been using resources is destroying life. And part of that is human caused. And I know we all talk about this, loop about this over and over again. And part of this is just evolution. The earth has always changed. Where there was water, there's now land. Where there was land, there's now water. The earth has been changing since over 4.6 billion years, and she's changing now. And so what I see is that the unweaving will continue because we're too in the process. It's not going to all of a sudden just stop. That's not natural, and we are nature, so we have to go through the nature's process, and nature's process goes completely into a death and gestates new life, and then there's new birth, and then there's the states of illumination. And so what I see is, as we keep losing more and more of our ways of life and what's important to us, that sculpting that I keep talking about is going to keep happening for us, where we're going to be sculpted, our ego, our personality, what we want, what we desire, what we always thought was a good life. As that starts to be dismembered, taken away from us, it opens us and it sculpts us in a way where our own inner light shines through our eyes. When you look at people in indigenous cultures, no matter how much suffering they're going through, there is a joy and light shining through their eyes that we're all in the West envious of. And we're going to get to that place. But and this is my prediction of where we're going. We're going into a place of being more filled with light, being more filled with joy, but letting go of the trappings of the life that we thought we had to have and the resources that we thought we had to live a happy life. I think
Mm.
I think we're just going to see a different perspective on life. Um,
So essentially, it's just really letting go of the limiting beliefs, the social constructs, everything that we've known to be be true and step out of our comfort zone and really embrace the vastness of what is looking or wanting to emerge from us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna step into our power. I mean,
Mhm.
those of us who stay here, we're gonna step into our power, but I believe in a good way. But, there's just gonna be a transition. We're in that transition right now. We're in a painful transition, but if you believe in consciousness and if you believe in destiny, we chose to be here during this time. We chose to be part of the collective that transforms into greater beings and greater spiritual selves and beings of light. How exciting. But the parts of loss, that's not so much fun. That's not exciting. But if you can hold on to the vision of we have not even begun to tap into the greatest parts of ourselves yet. We have not even begun, and we have this opportunity to do that in our lifetime, and that's where we're going.
How beautiful. Well, thank you so much for bringing all of your wisdom to the listeners. And I know we did talk about doing a part two for our podcast outside of just this series. So I'm really excited to dive deeper with you. But I really appreciate the tips. I think those are extremely practical and something that people can really get down with right away and use as right after they listen to this, which is perfect. So thank you so much for that. And before I let you go, I wanted to see kind of what updates do you have regarding your work and things that you have upcoming for 2020 and beyond, and what would you like to share?
Well, I got an interesting download from the spirits about my new work, and so I'm not really ready to talk about that yet. But I write a monthly column called the Transmutation News, and it's on my website, sandraingerman.com, and you can just push that button. I haven't missed a month in 20 years, and I will be what I do is I talk about the visions I'm getting, what the spirits are sharing with me, practices to do, every update, every download. I write that every month for you. And if you want, you can sign up for my email list and then you just get the newsletter delivered to your mailbox every month. I'm doing a little bit more online teaching only because it allows me to talk to an audience who can't afford to travel right now and but is really looking for tools for change. And so I am teaching a new course through the Shift Network next year, starting February, and it's going to be a beginning course on shamanic journeying. It will be 7 weeks live with me doing the teaching, time to do and ask Q&A questions to me, and that's going to be a really exciting course. And then every Sunday, I've joined in a partnership with Renee Baribeau, who wrote a brilliant book on working with the spirit of the wind. And we have a free podcast. It's 30 minutes every Sunday called The Shaman's Cave. And if you would like to learn about it, just tune into shamanstv.com and all the information is right there for you. So thank you, Christopher, for allowing me to share this.
Perfect. Well, I know some people that may be listening have been exposed to your work, some have not. But if I could urge anybody to check out any body of work, it's definitely Sandra's. And I'm really, really excited for what's to come and what you're already currently doing, especially with Shaman's TV. That sounds super exciting. I can't wait to tune in myself to that. So I will make sure I link everything for everybody so they can just easily hit one button and tap into whatever it is. And then whenever you do get that link for the course coming up, we'll make sure to get that out as well. So thank you again. And I look forward to future interactions and conversations with you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. And I just love the work that you're doing. So thank you for who you are.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Have a blessed day.
You too.